Holy Scriptures can alone secure to society order and peace, and to our courts of justice and constitutions of government purity, stability, and usefulness. In vain, without the Bible, we increase penal laws and draw entrenchments around our institutions. Bibles are strong entrenchments. Where they abound, men cannot pursue wicked courses. Our founders also knew the disastrous consequences of not obeying God's rules. Washington, again, in his first inaugural address, he said, "We ought to be no less persuaded that the propitious smiles of heaven can never be expected on a nation that disregards the eternal rules of order and right, which heaven itself has ordained." Charles Carroll, the signer of the Constitution, or the Declaration, and a framer of the Bill of Rights, he said, "Without morals, a republic cannot subsist any length of time. They therefore, who are decrying the Christian religion, are undermining the solid foundation of morals, the best security for the duration of free governments." Jedediah Morse, considered the founder of American geography, he said, "To the kindly influence of Christianity, we owe that degree of civil freedom and political and social happiness which mankind now enjoy. In proportion as the genuine effects of Christianity are diminished in any nation, in that same proportion will the people of that nation recede from the blessings of genuine freedom. All efforts made to destroy the foundations of our holy religion ultimately tend to the subversion also of our political freedom and happiness. Whenever the pillars of Christianity shall be overthrown, our present republican forms of government and all the blessings which flow from them must fall with them." And why are we declining as a nation? You just heard it from our founders. When we turn away from God, we'll reap the consequences. And it's scary to think about how far we may fall with what's going on. What can we do about it? Noah Webster, you know Webster's dictionary that he wrote? He was considered one of the founding era. "When you become entitled to exercise the right of voting for public office, let it be impressed on your mind that God commands you to choose for rulers just men who will rule in the fear of God. The preservation of a republican government depends on the faithful discharge of this duty. If the citizens neglect their duty and place unprincipled men in office, the government will soon be corrupted. Laws will be made not for the public good so much as for selfish or local purposes. Corrupt or incompetent men will be appointed to execute the laws. The public revenues will be squandered on unworthy men, and the rights of the citizens will be violated or disregarded. If a republican government fails to secure public prosperity and happiness, it must be because the citizens neglect the divine commands and elect bad men to make and administer their laws." John Jay, the first Chief Justice of the Supreme Court and co-author of the Federalist Papers, said, "Providence has given to our people the choice of rulers, and it is a duty as well as a privilege and interest for Christian nations to select and prefer Christians for their rulers." Amen. Now, I know all of us voted for what we thought were the most godly men and women running for office, or at least the least ungodly. You know, sometimes it's a choice between the lesser of two evils. My prayer is it's not too late to make America great again. And we know how we do it. We've got to get back to our founding principles in Christianity. Questions or comments? All right, the basket is going around if y'all want to make a donation to the club. Our guest speaker tonight is Gary Humble. I'm going to let Bob introduce him. Should be.
Yeah, I was told about Gary Humble, but I think about Kevin Desmond. So I checked him out and went to his website and checked that out, and everything looked good. So I went and heard him speak, and then I decided we got to have this guy. So I sent him an invitation, and he accepted it. And he's going to talk to us tonight about about some things, but I'm going to read to you before I introduce him. Put my thumb on the right place. This is, see, Gary started an organization called Tennessee Stands, and I'm sure he's going to tell you about it tonight. But here's their mission statement. Tennessee Stands is a nonprofit social advocacy organization that serves to protect the individual liberties of all Tennesseans as stated in the Tennessee State Constitution and given to us by God. We are citizens of Tennessee who demand that our governor, county executives, and legislature restrict their authority to only that which they are given by the Tennessee Constitution. I think we can all agree with that.
Yes.
Gary drove all the way here from Franklin, Tennessee, a 3-hour drive tonight to be with us and talk to us. And that's a long drive back too. He's going back tonight. So let's give Gary a warm welcome and thank him for coming.
Thank you all for the warm welcome. I feel like I'm in front of a very educated, constitutionally sound group tonight. So I do my best to impress, but don't hold your breath. And you know, I'm definitely not the smartest guy in the room, but I am a guy that's willing to put myself out front and take some shots and some arrows for what I believe to be right, and I know many of you are too. And I think if COVID has done anything, I was saying earlier, is it has awakened that in many of us. Where probably a few months ago, we were just, I don't want to say complacent, but probably not as active and aware as we are today at how quickly this can all go away if we let it. And there's no question, as I look out, it's not being taken away. My perspective on what's going on right now is we are giving it away. And it's shocking to me how much we comply with everything that's coming down the pike. Even in the sense of business owners who had a business that perhaps they built for decades or generations. And when the government said closed, even though they knew it was going to destroy their business, they closed. Now, some of them had no other choice because there's closed too, and everybody else around them closed. There's a sort of a chain reaction, but collectively, we chose to obey. And maybe partially at the front, like you and me both probably said when this whole thing first started, maybe there's something to this. You know, we were all willing probably for the first, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, maybe even 4 weeks, to forego some individual liberty to make sure that our community was safe. But 9-10 months down the road, I think you and I can probably all agree that there's something a little bit more nefarious going on.
That's right. Yeah.
So, we live in interesting times. We're way beyond COVID now. I mean, the just all-out affront to down with America. I mean, you realize that's what's going on. I mean, that's the agenda. To complete the agenda that's going on right now, America has to go down. Our economy has to go down. Our structure has to be broken. But I want to start out, and with that, actually, while you were talking, I love de Tocqueville, and so I pulled out my favorite de Tocqueville quote from Democracy in America, which I think is very fitting. He said this: "If the lights that guide us ever go out, they will fade little by little, as if of their own accord. Confining ourselves to practice, we may lose sight of basic principles. And when these have been entirely forgotten, we may apply the methods derived from them badly. We might be left without the capacity to invent new methods, and only able to make a clumsy and unintelligent use of wise procedures no longer understood." And my, how we are here in 2020, very unwisely and clumsily utilizing what is the wisdom of our Constitution are not utilizing. And real quick, a little about myself. I moved here actually just 3 years ago. I lived in Texas for quite a while, in Dallas, Fort Worth. I think this battery might be going out. If there's a... Awesome, all right. I moved here 3 years ago to Franklin, Tennessee, and married for 22 years to my high school sweetheart. And we have 3 little boys. They're 2, 7, and 9. So my oldest 2 are 2nd and 3rd graders, and they were enrolled in public schools at Williamson County. And again, like I was saying earlier, like a lot of you, March, April hits, and you're trying to figure out what's going on. Well, for me, whenever July hit, and Williamson County schools put out their reopening framework as to how things were going to go down in the schools, I realized very quickly that this wasn't going to go away. And what rung my bell was this. Of course, they require masks K through 12, which I wasn't happy about, and I wasn't going to send my kids to school in masks all day. But one caveat that I noticed is that the students are to wear a mask in Williamson County until there are 0 cases of COVID. Okay? I realized something there, that the idea that all of this was just going to normalize and go away, if we just waited it out, that was not going to happen. That we had to fight this and fight what was going on. And so I want to read Article 1, Section 2 of our Constitution. It's right up at the top, right at the beginning. It says this: that government being instituted for the common benefit, the doctrine of non-resistance against arbitrary power and oppression is absurd, slavish, and destructive of the good and happiness of mankind. And our Constitution not only talks about arbitrary power and the fact that we are to resist, it gives us, I think, a duty as Tennesseans to resist arbitrary power. But it even goes so far to say that if you don't, that is absurd. That is absurd, and it will eventually lead to your destruction. And so you have to begin to ask yourself, okay, well, it gives us a duty to resist arbitrary power. So what is arbitrary power? Well, I don't know. If the government seems to just go on about its business, cherry-picking who's essential and non-essential, might that be considered arbitrary? It's really interesting how this emergency power statute is being applied and actually considered lawful. Think about this for a moment as far as arbitrary power goes. We supposedly have an emergency power statute that gives the governor the authority to delegate these powers to county mayors, right? And the county mayors can choose whether or not they apply the authority in their county, whatnot. Well, right now we have a mask mandate in Davidson County. We have a mask mandate in Williamson County. Well, if you get cited in Davidson County, it's a Class C misdemeanor. Okay, so you get a $50 fine and possibly 30 days in jail. But if you just go down the street and you get cited for the same thing, again under state authority, but in Williamson County, it's a Class 8 misdemeanor. And you get a $2,500 fine and possibly a year in prison. Now, might that be considered arbitrary power? And so the fact that we're just complying with all this nonsense, some of us, blows my mind. And just by that alone, you can see that we are all just making this up as we go. And that's the problem. So some of you, all of you, may or may not know that because of that, we have filed a lawsuit against Governor Bill Lee. And look, I'm not a fan, just to be honest. I'm not a fan. At the same time, I'm not here to impugn the governor's character, but I'm here with great disappointment and disgust at how he has exercised his powers throughout this entire ordeal. At the same time, going on the news and Fox News and claiming to be God's gift to conservatism and how he's opened the state. He hasn't opened the state. He hasn't left decisions to local people. He's simply empowered the tyrants across the state, is all he's really done, which in my opinion is a lack of leadership. But it's not even that. The principle is it's just unconstitutional. And that's the argument, and that's what you and I need to defend vigorously. is that it's fine that the legislature decided in the year 2000 to pass a statute that delegated its lawmaking authority to a governor. The problem is, it's unconstitutional. So it doesn't matter. And when the governor took office in 2019, he took an oath, by the way, so help him God, to do only two things. And I will tell you, one of them is not to keep you safe. The two things he swore by God to do, to the best of his ability, it says, is to uphold and defend the Constitution of our state and to uphold the United States Constitution. That's it. His whole purpose in life as the governor of the state is to vigorously defend the liberties secured to you and I by our Constitution. First and foremost, that's it. That's the job. And in my opinion, miserably failing. Here's why. So our lawsuit, and I think you may have talked about this, so I'll go through this quick and I'll work more towards giving you some updates on what's going on. But the lawsuit basically is comprised of two things. And by the way, I won't get into all the lawsuits. We have three. We have a lawsuit against Governor Bill Lee. We have a lawsuit against Williamson County Schools. And last week we sued our county mayor, Mayor Rogers Anderson, because he reinstituted the mask mandate. And there's but the reason we did that is because in all three of those lawsuits, we served the governor based on the unconstitutionality of 582107 of the emergency power statute. Because we know that all three of those lawsuits come with their own challenges, whether it be our standing or whatever else may happen in the court. So by serving the governor on the same basis in three different lawsuits in three different courts, we're sort of gambling a little bit, so to speak. We're kind of hedging our bets. Because it's hard. You're leaving your liberty up to the court. That doesn't always go well, you know. So it's a hard thing. But anyway, we sued on two bases, and the reason that we believe that the emergency power statute is unconstitutional is these two things. One, the statute gives the governor the authority to make executive orders with the force and effect of law. Well, in fact, this was funny. Last Monday, and I'll give you the update on that, we had our first hearing in Davidson County Court on our case against the state, and it was defending the state's motion to dismiss, which is the first thing they do. We knew that was coming. But the attorney for Nashville Metro was trying to say, well, see, the statute just gives the governor the ability to make an executive order with the force and effect of law, so it's not a law. And it's like, well, does a pig moo? Or does, you know, no, it's a law. If it has the force and effect of law, well, guess what it is? It's a law. God, it was funny trying to watch her defend that. But it gives the governor the power to make law. Well, our Constitution, it doesn't. Let's just leave it there. Our Constitution doesn't. And in fact, you might be aware of the Michigan decision. And if you're not, it's a really exciting decision for us because albeit it's a separate state constitution and it's a state court, so it doesn't have, you know, precedent necessarily. It does certainly inform the court of their decision. So the Michigan went all the way up to the case went all the way up to the Supreme Court, and they ruled Governor Whitmer's actions and their emergency power statute unconstitutional based on their separation of powers doctrine, which in their Michigan Constitution is Article 3, Section 1. Ours is Article 2, Section 2. But it's almost literally verbatim, word for word, exactly the same statement. And it simply says that we have a legislature, an executive branch, and a judiciary, and each one shall not execute on the powers of the other. That's it. Plain and simple. So the governor can't do the legislature's job, the court can't do the governor's job, so on and so forth. They're three separate branches, and they can never share those powers ever. Not even COVID. There's no special circumstances here. And in Michigan, the court simply ruled that, well, then these emergency powers were unconstitutional because the legislature unconstitutionally delegated its lawmaking authority to the governor. We're making the same argument here under the same type of separation of powers doctrine in our Constitution. So we're hopeful that the justices see it that way. Let's just say that. And the second premise is simple. It's that the governor, the statute gives the governor, get this, the authority to delegate powers as he deems prudent. That's it. Delegate powers to who? I don't know. For how long? I don't know. What type of power? I don't know. He can just delegate power. So that's not how government works, you know? You would think that's common sense, but it's not. In any case, you know that the governor delegated authority to county mayors. Article 7, Section 1 of our Constitution. Duties of county executives shall be prescribed by the General Assembly. It's just, don't need a judge to interpret that. If you want to give county mayors more duties, additional powers, take them away, reserve them, whatever, General Assembly, not the governor. It's unconstitutional. I don't care that it's an emergency. I don't care about COVID. I don't care about any reason why you think the Constitution is no longer effective. It is. We get that, right, in here? There's no special circumstance, ever, by which the Constitution is not in effect. Ever. You know, a lot of people make the argument, they start saying, well, 10th Amendment, well, the 10th Amendment. I'm like, well, you don't understand what you're saying. The 10th Amendment simply says that the rights belong to the states, okay? But guess what? I'm not making an argument on the U.S. Constitution. I'm making an argument on the Tennessee Constitution. So even by the 10th Amendment, our state still has to abide by our state constitution. Our government was organized by our state constitution. Our governor gets his powers from our state constitution. So that's why we're in state court. That's why we're resting our argument there. All right. So I'll move on from there. You guys know this. The core issue, as I see it, that you and I should all be very concerned about. And this is the issue, as you know, I think that everyone's trying to do away with in this new socialist Marxist move that we're in now, is to do away with the separation of powers. And separation of powers is the most critical aspect of our government and our Constitution. In fact, in the Michigan opinion, they quoted from Federalist 47, and this is a great quote from Madison. He said this: "The accumulation of all powers, legislative, executive, and judiciary, in the same hands, whether of one, a few, or many, and whether hereditary, self-appointed, or elective, may justly be pronounced the very definition of tyranny." Yes. Make no mistake, when you attribute all that power to one man, even if it's during an emergency, it's tyranny. And you and I are under tyranny. You're under the tyranny of the governor. You're under the tyranny of the Knox County Board of Health. Crazy stuff going on with our boards of health. By the way, if you don't, I want to talk about a bill from Representative Zachary that I'm really excited about, if you don't know about that. But why do we have separation of powers? Why is it important? Well, because men can be horrible people. We are manipulative, terrible, disgusting human beings outside of the redemptive power of Christ. And our founders understood that. Yeah, that was in the Adams quote you gave a minute ago. But Hamilton put it a little bit clearer in Federalist 6. He said, "Men are ambitious, vindictive, and rapacious." He was making his case for needing a separation of powers. Look, you leave a man to his own device, he will take everything from you. He will protect his own interests. And he will get you back for whatever it is you did to him. You know, so it's important that we have these checks. So I'll get into some bills. I want to say one more thing, and then I'll get on to the updates from bills and lawsuits and all that. There's a quote from the Pennsylvania case that I thought was incredible, and I actually took it as a warning from the judge, which is why I'm doing what I'm doing and why we need to stop complying and why we need to stand up and fight now. Pennsylvania District Court federal judge, they issued their ruling. Of course, they declared that it was a First Amendment, 14th Amendment case, and they declared their emergency powers unconstitutional. But in the opinion, this district court judge said this: good intentions toward a laudable end are not alone enough to uphold governmental action against the constitutional challenge. Indeed, the greatest threats to our system of constitutional liberties may arise when the ends are laudable and the intent is good, especially in a time of emergency. But in an emergency, even a vigilant public may let down its guard, like we did, over its constitutional liberties, listen to this, only to find that liberties once relinquished are hard to recoup, and restrictions, while expedient in the face of an emergency situation, may persist long after the immediate danger has passed. This judge literally is issuing a warning to you and I, saying, listen, there might be a time when we're willing to give up some liberty, but just so you know, when you give it up, it's incredibly hard to get back. And you can, look, you can think about through human history. I mean, just go all the way back to like Greco-Roman. When in the history of mankind has a governmental power ever taken liberty, or where we ever gave it away, and we did not recoup it with blood? Never. Governments don't give back liberty. We've always simply just taken it. That's, in fact, that's how we formed America. We took it back. So it's a scary place to be now in 2020, where you have a very large portion of our citizenry that is perfectly okay giving that liberty away. Sheeple. And they've forgotten history. It's the Tocqueville. We've forgotten those wise procedures. The lights that guide us are going dim, and we can't see what's in front of us. Part of my job that I feel like I said, I'm not the sharpest tool in the shed, but I'm loud, and I'm trying to get people to understand it. There's no more tolerance. There can be no more tolerance for this. There can be no more just wait and see. There can't be no more, well, we'll just fix it at the polls. We see how that works.
Yeah, they fixed the polls.
Because they fixed the polls. We have to stand, you and I from now on, from here on out, are going to have to do the work of knowing our rights. I mean, we need to be the legal experts. We need to know the Constitution. We need to know our statutes here in Tennessee. We need to know where the authority of every elected official begins and ends, because it's going to be our job from here on out to check them on it and to ensure, as we said in our mission statement, that our elected officials do not operate in an authority which they don't have. And look, I just want to challenge you tonight. Just because someone is in power doesn't give them authority. I used to be a pastor many years ago. Went to Bible college, all that good stuff. And I'll say it to this group, I've said this enough, I don't care anymore. But if I have one more pastor come up to me and tell me about Romans 13, I'm just going to punch him in the face. I'm just going to punch him in the face. I don't care. And I'm not even going to ask for forgiveness. I'm not even going to pray about it. I'm just going to punch him. Because I am so sick of that Romans 13, just obey the government argument, because it's why we are where we are. And when the next Christian that comes to you with that argument, here's what you need to remind them. We don't serve a Caesar. The government is we the people.
Amen.
It's you and me. And right now, these fools are not operating under the authority that we get. You realize Article 1, Section 1 of our Constitution says that we have the right to not just reform our government, to abolish it. Now, I'm not calling for to abolish our government. I'm simply saying that should communicate something to you. You're at the top of the food chain. If you can abolish the thing, that puts you at the top. That puts you in charge. Okay? And we have to retrain our thinking on this. I mean, you all know what the consent of the governed is. I'm preaching to the choir. The trick is we don't need to just know it anymore. It's not incumbent upon us to just know it. It's incumbent upon us to live it out and act on it. So for me, when someone comes to me and tries to issue a rule over my life that I know is based in an authority that they don't have, guess what? I'm not complying. I'm getting off that train. I don't care that you're the guy. I'm the guy. And I'm just not I am very happy to submit myself to a lawful authority. Every day of the week, I will do that. To a lawful. Count every legal vote. There's no problem here with lawful authority. But we need to understand and resist unlawful, unconstitutional authority.
Yeah.
So here's some things that we're doing that you need to know about. Obviously, we're filing lawsuits. The update on the state, a lot of you might want to know, look, it's going slow. I hate court. It's just slow. And I know people are frustrated. Gary, I thought you sued the governor. Well, I did. It's just slow. So we had a hearing on November 9th. That was, the state made a motion to dismiss the case, which the main defense is to defend our standing. So very quickly, whenever you go to court, you can't just simply go to court and sue the government for something because you don't like it. You have to have standing. You have to make a case to the court that somehow you have actually been injured. You have sustained an injury. That can be a difficult case to make because I haven't been arrested. The police haven't issued me a citation. You know, so in that regard, I haven't been injured. But these mandates have turned my life upside down. I've had to pull my kids out of school. I get harassed everywhere that I go to wear a mask that I don't want to wear. I have grocery stores trying to tell me how to take care of my health. Since when? What gives you the right to do that? And there's all sorts of reasons that my life has changed. My wife's not working a job or making any sort of income because she's now dedicated all of her time to homeschooling our kids. Because we don't want to put them in a situation where they're emotionally disturbed and not getting a great education, which, by the way, our Department of Education has issued a study that has conclusively shown that our reading scores and math scores are way down. Our students are suffering, y'all. I mean suffering in this state. Literally, I kid you not, I was 15 minutes. I was coming down 321, 323, whatever that is, and I'm driving off the interstate. Someone called the number on our website rings my phone. I still pick it up every now and then. I picked it up. It was just a dad from Fayette County, just outside of Memphis. And he said, "Hey, is this Tennessee Stand?" I said, "Yes, it's Gary. Now I just need to know what to do. Just a guy and a family." And this is just, you could replicate these stories all across the state. My daughter, she's special needs, but the school, you know, they won't meet the requirements of the IEP. She's really suffering. She can't do school online, but they're forcing her to do school online. She tries to log in, but she just can't. My wife and I can't always be there to do it. So when she misses the login, they mark her absent. Now she has 14 absent days, and they sent us a letter of truancy and all that stuff, and I just don't know what to do. And I said, "Man, you're in the boat right now of about 5,000 other parents that are holding those same truancy letters." But he didn't know. He was all freaked out. He thought the state was about to come take his kids. But it's just crazy stuff like that, man, that our families are just struggling at very, very deep levels. You know, part of being in this position is great because I get to meet a lot of people and do this, but part of it sucks because I'm also the guy getting a lot of horrible stories. There's just people really struggling. They're just looking for help. They don't know where to turn. So this is really damaging, you know, families and kids. You know this, but one of the things we're doing is we have. Why was I saying that? Oh, I was talking about standing, about being injured by standing. So we've, that court case happened. We've issued our defense. We think we made a pretty good one based on our standing, and the judge has taken it under advisement. Now we're waiting on the judge to rule. That's where the case is. So what we're hoping, what you can pray for, is that the judge dismisses the state's motion to dismiss, or rejects the state's motion to dismiss. That's the hope. If so, we move to the next step, which is we'll have a hearing on summary judgment. We're going to ask the court for summary judgment, and then she'll hear that, and then she'll issue a ruling. We're hoping that sometime in January. We'll see. If, no matter what ruling we get, we really feel really good about our case. No matter what, we plan to skip the appellate court. Mr. Cobb, you might know the legal term for this. I don't know what you call it whenever you request that the Supreme Court just pull it straight up, just bypass the appellate court. So in this situation, we can do that. We're going to request that the Supreme Court, once we have a decision from Chancery Court, just pull it straight up to the Supreme Court. Because it's going to go there anyway. And we don't really care what the appellate court thinks. We just need to know what the Supreme Court's going to say. So that's where the state case is. And then we have our 2 other cases pending, which are going to take some time. So that's where that's the legal stuff. We are running a bill to defend and protect, the correct word is secure, religious exemptions to vaccines. And that just officially got filed in the House today. It's House Bill number 10, which we're really excited about. It's being carried by Representative Jay Reedy, and Senator Mark Pody is going to carry it in the Senate. And it should be filed in the Senate very soon. House is always first. But how many of you knew, because this was shocking to me when I saw this in statute, how many of you would think that in the state of Tennessee, that it would be legal for your employer to force you to have a vaccine or you lose your job? Would you think that in the state of Tennessee that would be legal? Shouldn't be, but it probably is, and it is. Even in the case of a religious exemption, the statute actually says this. It's in Title 50. That's your employer-employee code, and there's a part in that code that's your rights as an employee. And it goes to say that, you have a right to be exempt from an immunization or medical treatment from your employer based on religious grounds. But there's a comma. And after the comma it says, except where the medical examination, immunization, or treatment is necessary for the protection of the health or safety of others. That's in our statute. Now, what have you been trained about to think about masks? The same thing. Well, it's not for you. It's not for me. It's for them. We just protect everybody else. Well, that sentiment is actually in our statute. So, according to the statute, as long as your employer or the Board of Health or somebody determines that this vaccine is necessary for everybody else to keep them safe as well, you lose your religious exemption in the state of Tennessee. You either take the vaccine or you lose your job. Now, can you think of any corporations that are here in Tennessee that might go ahead and employ that statute? I can. Yeah, that's the first one I thought of. There's a lot, y'all. Can you imagine how many just everyday Tennesseans that have 2 jobs that cannot lose their job? They're going to get faced with this. I'm either unemployed or I'm taking this vaccine that, by God, I don't want to take it. It's a horrible situation that we've put people in here in the state of Tennessee. Same thing exists in schools and in our juvenile code. Parents have a legal right to exempt their children in schools and just simply as a parent from taking vaccines based on religious grounds. Except in the statute, it begins with, you can have a religious exemption, here's the caveat, in the absence of an epidemic or the immediate threat of an epidemic.
It's always a threat.
So there's just, it could be all the time. And the scary thing about these statutes is, guess what? Being under emergency powers certainly makes it much easier for those types of exceptions to go into effect. But make no mistake, those statutes don't require emergency powers. They just require someone in leadership, probably the commissioner of health, to say we're in an epidemic, or there's something bad coming, y'all, we got to get them all vaccinated. And you lose your religious exemption in the state of Tennessee. Let me go a little bit further. There's a statute in our health code. Listen to this. Y'all, I guarantee y'all don't know this is in our law. This is in Title 68 in our health code. And it's titled Refusal of Vaccination. It says this: every person who refuses to be vaccinated or prevents a person under such person's care and control from being vaccinated on application being made by the health officer or Board of Health or a physician employed by the health officer or Board of Health. So for example, in this situation, a physician that is employed by the State Board of Health comes to you and says, you need to have a vaccine. For whatever reason they deem medically necessary. You need to have a vaccine, and you refuse it. Okay? Unless the written, let's see what it says, for that purpose. Unless the written opinion of another physician, it would not be prudent, hang on, I lost my place of thought, place of reading. Yeah, refuse to take such immunization unless you couldn't on account of sickness by the opinion of another physician. That person commits a Class C misdemeanor. Did you know that the Board of Health or a doctor working for the Board of Health can forcibly vaccinate you? Or if you commit a Class C misdemeanor in our state? That's mind-blowing. And by the way, that statute doesn't have a religious exemption. You're just going to jail or paying your $50 fine. Did you know that all of our laws are not constitutional? Did you know that? Man, if everyday Tennesseans really knew what was written in our statute. So, our bill does this. That statute I just read you, it just strikes the whole thing. God, that needs to just go away. And then it adds in each of those three statutes where there's those exceptions to your religious exemption, we're just striking that. So, in other words, we're saying if you have a religious exemption, you have a religious exemption all the time, no matter what. Doesn't matter, you have a religious exemption. And then the last thing it does is it's adding this language. We're going to add a subsection that says, because you know why we're adding this? Because you can strike all this stuff, and then some bozo that works in some state administration decides that they have the authority to make some kind of rule that says you have to take a vaccine. So we're going to add a statute that says, no state agency or department shall promulgate, and no political subdivision of the state shall promulgate or adopt any ordinance or rule that shall require medical examination, immunization, or treatment for those who object to the medical examination, immunization, or treatment on religious grounds or by right of conscience. Which that's a whole other conversation. I won't tell you why I put right of conscience in there, but it is in our Constitution. I believe it's Article 1, Section 3. Our Constitution, as it gives us a right to worship, says that, I'm invoking the Constitution, actually says that no, hang on, let me make sure I get this right, because it's important. I got the Constitution on my phone, just give me a second. Who has the Constitution on their phone? You should.
I can get it.
Yeah, you should. All right, Article 1, Section 3. That all men have a natural and indefeasible right to worship Almighty God according to the dictates of their own conscience. That no man can of right be compelled to attend, erect, or support any place of worship or to maintain any minister against his consent. Listen to this. That no human authority can, in any case whatever, control or interfere with the rights of conscience. There's a lot there. But the point of putting right of conscience in this statute is, in fact, to invoke our Constitution. To say, guess what? I'm not just making this up. We're constitutionally protected here. So that's what I'm trying to say. I do know that I'm going to get some pushback on that, but we'll fight that fight when it comes. All right. So that's a little bit about what we're doing. Let me give you one little other thing, and then we can Q&A. But am I good? I don't even know what. Okay. Okay. I just kind of want to lay this out because I'm just being honest with you. Maybe something we can talk about too. Like, I'm not really honest with you what to do about this situation. But I just want to tell you I'm very fearful about what's coming. You know, you realize that masks are a training ground. Maybe some do, some don't. That's my personal opinion. You know, I think stay-at-home orders, lockdowns, close your business, wear a mask all the time. We're being trained. It's like how much will you actually comply with? And I do believe that the end game is to take this vaccine. And God knows whatever else is coming afterwards. And I don't know if you saw this last week. There was an article, and there's been some more conversation had since then, but there was an article released from Billboard.com that Ticketmaster, the world's largest purveyor of tickets for live events, concerts, football games, including Live Nations, which is just about every concert you can imagine. They're partnered with a company called Clear, and that company is designing a digital, what they call a digital health passport. That digital health passport carries information as to whether or not you've been vaccinated for COVID. It also carries information as to when was the last time you tested negative or positive for COVID. Of course, as those tests age, you have to continue to retest to prove that you're negative. And it keeps your digital health pass in the green. Well, Ticketmaster is going to partner with Clear so that to ensure that in order to process a ticket purchase to a live event, your digital health pass has to show that you have either first taken the vaccine or you have a recent negative test for COVID. And you know that's coming. The next place I see that coming is public transportation, and in particular airplanes. I mean, that's just coming. My fear is, and so where I'm at right now with this, I've had several conversations with what I would consider key conservatives in our legislature. And I've been very disappointed to get a lot of pushback on my idea. I understand the argument, so I'm kind of brainstorming with you tonight, actually. I'm kind of just sharing this idea. Because my fear is this: you don't need the government to indoctrinate or mandate these things over you anymore, because the corporations are doing the work now of doing that, right? We know that a lot of these large corporations are sort of all bought into this Chamber of Commerce model, and they all just sort of funnel up to the same thing. And they're all doing the same thing. They're all doing this in concert. You can't walk into a corporate store and not see a big intimidating stop sign that says, "You must wear your mask." And then you walk in there and you're walking down the aisle, and every 10 minutes, like, "Make sure you're being safe and you're wearing your mask." Okay, back on to the next song. So that's just where we are. My fear is, so they tell me it's unfounded, is that the vaccine's next. I mean, I'm fairly confident that this digital health pass is the next thing. You know, we can debate the nanobots and the vaccine and all that sort of stuff, and my job is not to get, I don't want to get too far into that for me personally. I'm trying to stick to the Constitution, to the law. But what I know, though, that this digital health pass thing is real. I know enough about technology to know. In fact, did you see this? Have you checked do you have an iPhone? Well, yeah, of course most people have an iPhone in here, I'm sure. Let's see, where's it at? Is it under health?
Yeah.
Where is that? I found this the other day. Oh, here it is, yeah. Privacy, health. No, it's not there. I can't remember where it is, but I did see it on my phone.
It's an icon, you know, where your steps, you do all your steps.
Yeah, but it's in settings.
Yeah.
If you go to settings, there's a health setting in your iPhone. There are now COVID-19. You got
privacy and then health.
In privacy and health. There's already a COVID-19 functionality that has been pushed to your phone. Now here's the funny thing about what I noticed this, because someone told me about it. I was like, no way. It didn't require an update. They just pushed it to the phone. You didn't have to update to the next iOS version. It didn't come that way. They just pushed it. So if you have an iPhone, you already have it. What that did was they've already equipped your iPhone with the Bluetooth technology to communicate with apps that are contact tracing. So if you download one of those contact tracing apps, they've already pushed the functionality to accommodate that in the iOS, so that this person knows, you know, that they say they had COVID and they know that you were there last night, you know, hanging out at Calhoun's, and now you need to quarantine. So it's not going away. Anyway, so the point is, I'm trying to prevent what I see coming. So I wanted to run a bill. Some of you may have the same pushback, so just hear me out. How do you stop businesses from mandating all this nonsense? Now the argument is, well, it's private business. You can't put all those restrictions. They can do whatever they want. It's a private business. And by the way, no shoes, no shirt, no socks. We've been doing this for years. Well, that's if you buy into the argument that a mask is like a shirt. I will just say, as an American, never in American history has a mask been considered a piece of clothing.
Right.
Ever. In our entire history. Ever. It's not a piece of clothing. And I would also say that shirts and pants typically are not regulated by OSHA and by the medical community, but masks are. Okay, so I consider a mask a medical device. Certainly I consider a vaccine a medical treatment. Why should a business be involved in any way, shape, or form as to whether or not I'm having some sort of medical treatment to be a consumer?
Right.
That's not liberty for the business, in my point of view. Why should they have the right to mandate what kind of health care I have to come into their premise? Okay, and let me just throw this free market thing out the window. I live in Williamson County. I want to go grocery shopping, because the other argument I get is, well, if they want you to wear a mask, just go shopping somewhere else. Okay, let's talk about groceries. I live in Williamson County. We have Kroger, Publix, Whole Foods, and Sprouts. They all want me to wear a mask.
That's right.
So, okay, Mr. Free Market Man, who do I go support? Where do I go shopping? Where do I go take my money? You know, well, we don't have that in Williamson County. So you have a place, maybe. My point is, we were working to draft a bill to add that not to, businesses of public accommodation already can't discriminate based on race, sex, creed, national origin, religion, all that sort of stuff. So that's already on businesses. I'm simply saying they also can't discriminate on whether or not I've had a medical treatment.
Right.
For whatever reason, every conservative I've talked to in the legislature, they look at me dumbfounded, like, that's just anti-business. We can't do that. I'm like, okay, well then I guess I'm going to have to take a vaccine to go get a loaf of bread. I'm not sure where this is going. So if we can't get it done legislatively, the only place we have left to go is the court. Here's the problem. There's no law that addresses this. The only thing that we've found that addresses this issue is the American Disabilities Act. The problem is, it's a pretty far stretch to make the argument that it applies to this particular situation. I'm only telling you this to say because it's one of the main things that people reach out to Tennessee Stands about, like, when is this going to change? I don't want to wear a mask. How do I go shopping without a mask? What do I do? What can we do? And I'm just here to tell you, I'm being honest, if you have any ideas, send me an email, because I don't know. The legislature doesn't seem to want to move on it. I've got no support on it, and we're considering filing a lawsuit, but it's a stretch. I mean, it is a legal stretch. It's going to take some legal gymnastics to think through how to get it done. So, I don't have. You have a question?
Costco is instituting that you have to wear a mask now to go in.
I've got their letter from the CEO right here.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I'm going to tell my wife is the one who got the Costco card.
Yeah.
So I'm going to tell her I'm going with you to Costco, and we are not wearing a mask. We're going to go to the counter and say, give me back the fees that I paid you for the card.
Which they've agreed to do.
They did?
Yeah.
Okay.
They don't care. They will give you your money back. Yes, CEO issued a statement. They started this Monday. Listen to this. This is Costco's statement. Members who could not wear a mask due to a medical condition were exempt. This is no longer the case. That's from the Costco CEO. They do not care that you have a medical exemption. You are not going into their store. And that goes all the way down to a 2-year-old. The only people who are exempted from wearing masks in their stores are 2 and under. If you're 3 and over, you're wearing a mask.
I feel like I'm 2 today.
And you identify as a 2-year-old. You know what? You should totally do that.
I identify as a 1 and a half-year-old.
Please put that on Facebook, because I very much want to see the outcome of that. So look, here's the thing. We have a lot of challenges in front of us. I would ask you to go to TennesseeStands.org. It has been a blessing to see all the people that have come on board and have donated across the state, have gotten active across the state. Just last week we announced we now officially have a Knoxville coalition and a Tri-Cities coalition. And this consists of a significant group of people that were already on the ground doing this stuff that have decided we want to join Tennessee Stands. And next week we now have a Chattanooga coalition coming online. So we're really, really excited. We are getting some really key initiatives placed across the state. And it's not just about the legal battles and about the legislation, but let me tell you what we're doing. I want to dismiss the idea that we can just fix this. Because guess what? We can't just fix this. You know why? Because we've let this go for decades. And I get so much, well, what do we do? What do we do? How do we fix this? Well, we messed up. We let this go for a long time. So now guess what? You and I have to do the very, very hard work and long, arduous task of getting this back and turning the ship. I'm in it for the long haul. What that means to me is we have to take back our county commissions and our school boards. If there's anything that I've seen as a resident of Williamson County, what's been the greatest danger to our individual liberties beyond what's happening in the world is the fact that our county mayor, our county commissions, and our school boards have capitulated. And if they had not, my family would be living very different lives right now. There is great power in the lesser magistrates, in your county sheriff, in your county mayor, in your county commission, your school board. So I'm on a mission now. Across the 2022 is coming like a freight train. And we are right now looking, we're building a pack. We're looking for candidates that we can work with, especially on the ground where we have people. There are so many moms and dads that are like, I'd love to be on the school board, but I can't raise money, I don't know how to campaign, I can't build a website, I'm not sure how to. We can do all of that. We have an entire digital team. Literally. We can do all of it. We can turn on a website, a yard sign, boom, 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 boom. We can have that done in 2 days. It takes $5,000 or $6,000 to run a successful campaign for a school board. I mean, a school board member needs like 1,000 votes. We can do this. We just have to do it. And we have not been. Candidates have not been running. How many times have you gone to the poll and you have a local municipal position and there's just one name? And you don't even know who it is. You're just like, things seem great. It's just one name. You push the button.
We had 2 school board races where nobody qualified.
Wow. So it all just stayed the same.
So some people went, no, I mean, nobody was on the
Oh, nobody was on the ballot.
So they had some people just went down and filed as a certified write-in, and all they did was write their name in, and 2 of them got on the school board.
Interesting. That's crazy.
It's awful.
We have to care again, y'all. We really do. These local races are critical. I know they are. So that's sort of the next phase. We're doing that work now of looking across the state, identifying key people. Like I know in Williamson County of the 12, our stagger, so we have in 2022 our even numbered districts. So we have 6 members up, and 3 of them gotta go. Like they have to go. And we already have candidates in each one of those districts ready to run. So that's the next step. Go to TennesseeStands.org. I would ask you to make sure you sign up on our email list. And please, please, please give us your address. Here's why. our database is getting, we have a action advocacy tool that if we have your address, we know where you are, we know who all your representatives are. So that whenever these bills get to the floor, and whenever these candidates come up for election, we can hit a button and send you an email in your specific region and give you just the information that you need to know, that you need to act on. Who we're supporting in your local election, and your representative that you need to call on this particular bill, like today, because we just found out it's going up for a vote tomorrow. Okay, that happens quite a bit in the legislature. So please do that. And there's a donate button. We have a 501c4, we have a C3, and we don't have a PAC yet, but that's coming. But we've got a lot of work to do. We're still building a legal fund. There are still some legal actions to take. We are gonna work a lot in the legislature this year in lobbying and going to the Capitol on a weekly basis, trying to make sure that we're constantly in front of these legislators. And these elections are going to be a big deal. These local elections are going to be a big deal in 2022, and we need all the help and support we can get. So with that, I'd love to answer any questions you might have.
Okay, we're about out of time, so just a couple of questions here.
Okay.
Okay.
You don't want to just say it?
Just a quick one. On your website, you have something to download so that if we join the Knoxville chapter, I guess you call it, that we can share with our neighbors.
That's great.
I have a big outreach, a lot of time.
That's a great, thank you for that. We have those for schools in some areas. We are creating digital assets now for your area, like a flyer that you can just print off. Yep. Yeah, and do that.
You want to support.
And we actually made that because someone in a county called us and said, man, I'd love to just go knock on doors and tell, do you have something I can print off? And we're like, yeah, we'll make something. So thank you for that.
That's what I'm looking for.
Okay.
So it's all in the ground game.
Okay, absolutely. We'll provide that. Thank you for that.
Okay, one more question. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to suggest something. Why don't you guys make up yard signs, say masks are unconstitutional? I'll put one up.
Yard signs are fickle because, at least in our area, most people, probably not here in more rural areas, but where we are, everybody lives in an HOA, and yard signs are frowned upon outside of political season. So, but it's a good idea, but wouldn't work for a lot of people.
Okay, one more quick one.
Anything we can do between now and when the legislature comes back in session that you can, I mean, I'm reminded how Washington attacked the Hessian army on Christmas Day. I mean, it always feels like we got to do something like that.
Right now, honestly, we need a lot of prayer for these court cases to go our way. Pray for these judges. As far as action points, the only thing I can say right now is two things. One, connect us with any local candidates that we should connect with. We're looking to make those relationships, and they need to be made now. Secondly, I would start calling state legislators about House Bill 10. And it's currently, it was filed today. It's being carried by Jay Reedy. That's our religious exemption bill to vaccines. And I would call your legislator and your state representative, make sure they're supporting House Bill number 10. And also, Jason Zachary, I'm really excited about, hopefully we'll talk soon, because we need his support on that bill. So if you're in his district, please get a hold of Representative Zachary and let him know that you want him to support HB 10. But also, we want to lend a great deal of support to House Bill 7, his bill that he just filed, which I think is great, to remove the autonomy of these 6 county health boards.
Yes.
So Representative Zachary has filed that bill, and that would essentially do away with these 6 autonomous health boards that we have in the state and just put everything under the advisory power of the Tennessee Department of Health, which absolutely is where this needs to go, and there's no question. They're a 4th branch of government, essentially, right now. This the administrative state, they're in Knox County, but so call your representatives. Let's identify some local candidates, because 2022 is not far away. And thank y'all so much for letting me be here tonight.
see them say one that comes out here. Okay, the next meeting's going to be in December 15th, and Tim Burchett, our U.S. representative, is going to be the speaker. So hope to see you all then. All right, we'll see you next month.
I'll meet you guys at the front.
Sounds good. Thanks for coming. Thanks for coming. Thanks for coming. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Well,
I get my pounds. We need to encourage one another. I usually Main County individual.
If he's in Nashville, I'm not that
Yeah, I think they're just going to shoot him and go in on
He's drafting the
I mean, I can't expect what they're going to get away with. I keep telling my wife, most people don't know it, but I think the average American citizen commits 3 felonies in
That's not I heard that he was the guy that's out there. What makes sense is he was the chair for the council. So it makes sense that he's
not that far from here. I need to see your main focus is what's his but I mean, of course, you know, I mean, if somebody's anti-gun, they're also anti-gun. Are you going to support them? But I realize you're pretty much
What do you think of that speaker? Okay, good. I would imagine you agree with pretty much everything.
See you again. Okay. I'm in touch with Frank on a regular basis. And now we got, my memory is Dave. Now we have Dave coming on.
I know, I'm a Costco customer, so
Yeah, I'm
basically
going to
if
use
I'm
the
at
restroom.
Costco,
Then I'm going to escort Connor to the car.
Right.
Some of us will say, okay, how about we start? Hey, thanks for coming down, man. So y'all come down from Green and say, push it out of the way on that side. So what's your meeting with? Not my organization, it's just.
Are you familiar with this house?
Yes.
letter that they had signed supporting the election process and counting the votes and all this stuff. It's kind of a little bit like piling on. Some people say, well, Tennessee's not in the fray, so why are we doing this? But anyway, I